Peace, y'all, and welcome to Gather and Heal, the podcast. My name is Vanessa Suhey, and I am your holistic host. Basically, we're going to have lots of combos. Sometimes it'll be just me, and sometimes we'll have some guests. No matter what the topic is, though, I'm going to make sure that it connects right back to your emotional wellness and healing journey.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Vanessa Suhey, your holistic host. I am joined here today with Silvana, and I am really excited about our conversation. When Silvana filled out my little Calendly thing, she was talking about decolonizing our practice. And I say our practice, I'm thinking about like mental health practitioners, but Silvana will elaborate for us. But I get really excited about that because that is a part of the work that I try to do in my group practice, and really thinking about ways to decolonize and make mental health more accessible, make it more relatable for our clients too, and not just picturing when you say therapy. I used to use this joke with my clients when I work with teenagers. When I say therapy, what do you think of? And they look at me, they're like, some old white lady taking notes while I lay down on the couch. And I always start laughing. I was like, well, already you can see that that's not me. And at that point, I used to do therapy in my car because it was community based. So I'd be like, and clearly there's no couch for you to lay down on. So, but just finding different ways throughout my career to connect and support people with what they need at that time. And the colonized version of mental health doesn't do that. And the medical industrial complex doesn't leave a whole lot of room for us to do that either. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm really excited for Silvana to fill in some more for us. But before we get into all of that juicy conversation, Silvana, tell us, who are your people? What do you enjoy doing? Tell us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. And yeah, so I am right now in private practice in Oregon. And what I am doing is trying to decolonize mental health, one
Yes,
counselor at a time, I guess.
I
Um,
love that.
I can relate to what you're saying. I think that my people, to answer that question, are other clinicians or other people in general who have been marginalized in any ways, or who have experience, being at the margins, and who really want to do something about it, who really want to change this. It doesn't matter if it is, you in your one person office or you in your agency or wherever. I think that any type of effort, it's an effort and it's action. um,
Yes.
so yeah, I have also, I mean, right now I'm in private practice, but before that I was in community mental health, realizing that therapy is not what we studied in school, right? This
Mm,
old white man who's a blank slate and who never shares about themselves or himself, I guess, right? Because it's
mm-hmm,
so cis and het as well, or
mm-hmm.
that's a traditional model of therapy. I have, I've been a case manager. I've been to people's houses, or this is so not like what we did in grad school, going to someone's house and their parents offering me food, stay here for lunch. And that is
Mm-hmm.
not what you learn in school, but it's part of forming those connections so that people
Mm-hmm.
can trust you, and it's part of being human. Or not having a meeting at the office, having a meeting around the park, because that's
Oh,
what the person can tolerate, right? And that's what helped
mm-hmm.
them co-regulate or feel better. So I think that in all this time that I've been a therapist, I realized, okay, there are so many things that I need to unlearn.
Mm,
And I have been conditioned, we have all been conditioned in so many ways. And why can't we do this in a different way? So I think that's the foundation, or that's my why I am doing this. And I don't want to stop with just clients. I want to have this conversation also with other clinicians as well.
mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
love that so much, all of it, right? And I'm
Thank you.
thinking about when I was fresh out of grad school, I did some community based work. I was living in Arizona at the
Mhm.
time. And, you know, I'd be going to people's homes and they're like, oh, Vanessa, do you want some water? I just made some dinner, right? If it's a late visit. And I could always remember kind of trying to sift through my parts. I had this part that obviously just graduated from the MSW program, and it was like, do not accept things from clients. It's
Completely.
confusing
Yeah.
and boundaries. And then this other part of me was like, that smells like some really good home cooking. And or even a simple, it's really hot outside. And yes,
Exactly.
I always travel with water, but my water's hot now. And that one,
Mhm.
she's got some ice cubes in it and it looks really good and cold, right? So just trying to navigate. And now I'm in a space of giving more room to those parts and
Mhm.
recognizing that there are ways that we can use our humanity, because we
Yes.
are humans with
Yes.
cultures and experiences too, in a way that's healthy to support our clients. And it doesn't have to be that blank slate. And it's
No.
not realistic and it doesn't work. It works for
No.
some people, which, hey, if it does, go for it.
Exactly.
But it
Right?
doesn't work over
Yeah.
here.
Completely, completely. Like if you choose to do that and you can be that, good for you if that's what you are
Mm-hmm.
um choosing, right? Thoughtfully choosing. But I mean, again, for what we know that therapy is or has been, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that cultural norm that therapy has been. I am not that norm. If you look at me, if you listen to me, I am not that blank slate and I don't want to be, right?
Mm,
And there are so many therapists out there. um when I have been to therapist, when I have been in grad school, when I have been in my internship, and now that I offer supervision, when I, work with some associates or interns, depending on what state you are,
right.
um, it's like there are so many different people, clinicians with so many different identities, with so many different ways of being.
Yes.
Why can't they offer therapy? Okay, learn this in grad school, and then maybe you can question some of those things,
Mm-hmm.
still maintaining your ethics and everything else, but can
Mm-hmm.
you incorporate that to your culture and to the people that you want to serve, right? That are not that norm either in some cases. So
Right.
again, can we make mental health more accessible, right? As opposed to having people come into this norm, can we just break that norm and go to those individuals who need this
Mm-hmm.
service? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm thinking about not sure if you can hear my toddler, but sounds like he's having fun out there.
I can hear something, but yeah, good for them for having fun.
Right. I'm thinking about a conversation that I had with my staff earlier today in supervision. She's a recent graduate from an MSW program, and program's amazing. And it's the Latin Leadership Institute within Boston College. And we were talking about one of her classes, solution focused therapy. And she
Mhm.
was like, Vanessa, it just doesn't really feel like that model aligns with me. It's not totally accessible for everyone, and so on and so forth. And we had a really good conversation. And she was like, yeah, I brought it up to my what is Jimena? The assistant professor, I think
Mhm.
she is at
Mhm.
the school. And she was like, yeah, I had to bring it up because how do we take these models and, as because some of them are very structured.
Yeah.
You got to follow it textbook from A to Z. But what happens when it doesn't fit and it doesn't work with our clients and that individual who's sitting across from us? And I
Exactly.
was just like, yes, question it all. I get so
Yes.
excited.
Yes. 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 I offered a webinar last week, and one of the things that I tell clinicians when figuring out how to decolonize their practices is, first of all, this is something very personal, right? The
Mm,
way that I am going to do that, the way that I'm going to decolonize my practice is not the same way that you are going to. And the other thing is, what are you comfortable within your discomfort? If this
mm,
makes sense, what are you comfortable with doing, right? I
yes.
remember a therapist telling me, you know what, Silvana, it doesn't matter if my client goes out of the state. I just want to offer them the best service possible. I don't want to disrupt our treatment and our rapport. I will keep on seeing seeing them. So maybe
Mm.
that works for some clinicians, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you have thought this through, if
Right.
you are willing to stand up, to your board, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe that doesn't work for other clinicians. So I think that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we need to question. I mean, we need to question the way that things have been built, right?
Right.
Maybe we agree with some, but maybe we disagree with others. And we are
Mhm.
not disagreeing just because we want to disagree. We're disagreeing for a reason, because we want the models to fit the people that we're serving, right?
Exactly.
And to fit ourselves as well, because I want to feel good with the approaches that I am
Mhm.
offering to my clients or to other clinicians. So yeah, I completely agree with the idea of questioning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way, so when I came off of insurance panels and I'm now private pay, the way I shared it with my clients is I was like, listen, these agencies, insurance companies, and so on, they weren't built for us. And so, though I have always done the best work that I can to work under this insurance company and meet your needs via a method that aligns with who I am as a clinician, I've done my best, but it's also a lot of juggling. It's
For
also a
sure.
lot of work.
I know.
And I told him, I was like, I need to come off of these panels because I want to be able to provide the services that you deserve and that you need in a way that's good for both of us. And every single one of my clients, whether or not they were able to continue with me, they were like, thank you. I get that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, because like, to me, that has to do with informed consent as well, right? Let
Right.
me be transparent with you and let me tell you the reasons why I am doing this or I am doing that,
Hmm.
right? And to me, it's also a way of empowering clients, right? I will keep on working with you, and this is how I want to, or this is this is the direction that my practice is taking, but let me tell you
Hmm.
beforehand, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, I can so relate to, insurance companies. I mean, I have online, in social media, in social, what is it, not social media, but well, let's call it social media, to not mention names in particular, but so many clinicians that post about, recoupments and the clawbacks,
Oh
like the
my
fear
goodness.
of, or medical necessity.
Hmm.
Why can't I just do my job and pay me for my job? Why can't you trust me that I went to school, I studied this, I have so many years of an internship. Like, I
Hmm.
know what I am doing, and I don't want to steal your money. I really want to provide a service to a person who needs it. And can you just pay me for that service, for my
Right.
time, right?
Hmm. And
Like,
don't take it back years
and
later.
don't take it back years later. Or don't say years later that I didn't meet medical necessity, or my client didn't meet medical necessity,
Right.
right? And to me, it feels like being between a rock and a hard place,
Hmm.
because it's like, I want to provide a service to a client, but I need to prove to you that the service makes sense, right? And I still kind of afraid of you because you can take my money back,
Hmm.
right? So to me, that's also, and I completely understand the clinicians who need to work within that system, right?
Hmm.
Because either you want to serve clients who are on Medicaid, or any other governmental benefits, or because it is easier to get clients in your area if they are insured, right?
Right.
And I completely support clinicians who don't want to deal with insurance companies. Believe me,
Mhm.
I can relate to that, right? So
Absolutely.
it's also such a personal decision,
Hmm.
right? I think that reminds me, and I won't get it right, but this quote, the book from Audre Lorde, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house," right?
Mm.
So it's like, okay, yes, let's all move away from insurance companies. That would be great. But then what about the clients who are
Right.
still needing their insurance? So, of
Hmm.
course, a major change should happen. But until that happens, again, to me, it's what can we do in our practices and in our personal lives decolonize or unlearn some of these ways, or be more aware of how the system is working and what things we can question from the system, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Hmm.
I think about it too when working and supervising staff and interns. It's really an important part of my work to make sure that they also know you can have supervisors of color. And
Completely.
I remind them all the time. I'm like, these meetings, when we're having a staff meeting or we're putting our heads together about different things, I want to hear from you, right? Like, I want this to be an open dialogue and conversation. And
Hmm.
I remember having an intern just this past year. She was like, I'm still really not used to this, Vanessa, because I'm used to having to be quiet in these types of meetings and there
Hmm.
being such a huge power dynamic and shift. And I was like,
Hmm.
well, I know that it will take some time to unlearn that.
Yes.
And when you are there, when you are ready, we're here. And I want to hear your voice. I want to hear your ideas.
Completely.
But just to see
Completely.
that ripple effect, not just in the clinical space of therapy, but also in staff meetings and how we as people of color, Black and Brown people, have to weigh things out and feel them out so much
Mm-hmm.
first.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right, because we have been used to, or we have been conditioned to live in without a system, right? Or to
Mhm.
behave, to act in a certain way. And we know, people of color, we know very well, what happens when we deviate from that norm, right? When
Mm,
we are not playing, or when we are not talking in a certain way, when we're not speaking, or behaving in a certain way.
right.
Maybe that's not on paper, but all those what is it, gut feelings that we get of, why are they looking at me that way, why are they responding,
Hmm.
we know why that is. So
Yes.
yeah, I have seen that with the people, the clinicians that I supervise as well, right? I am not going to remember well what this person said, but just last week someone told me something like, it felt so good to be allowed to not do well.
Mm,
They said something like that. They were not
hmm.
doing well, some personal things, and we talked about that. And it's okay, you're not doing well. You don't have to use those words with your clients, but you can let them know that, maybe I am not too focused today. Let's keep the meeting shorter. Like, let them know that you are human in a way that you are
Yes.
not, focusing on yourself because that's your client's time.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what this person told me just this week, that in their particular internship, they were not allowed to to feel bad, or
Mm,
to share that they were having a bad day, etc., etc.
yeah.
And when I think that that can be such good modeling for our clients, right?
Hmm.
Like, you know what, I didn't have a good morning, but I am here, and trust me that I can do this, or I will let you know when I cannot do this, right?
Yes.
uh, because I am listening to myself, because I am allowing myself to take breaks, because I have worked on my boundaries. I will let you know when I need to cancel an appointment. So many things. There are so
Exactly.
that seems so little, but I think they are so significant, and that
Hmm.
have to do so much with, again, decolonizing and liberating mental health.
Right.
Yeah. Like, if we cannot begin by, changing the whole big system, can we change these things that on the outside are so little, but they are actually not that little. They are very significant, I think.
So powerful,
Yeah.
right? And decolonizing mental health, but then also permission to decolonize self. And
For
as we're
sure.
unlearning and changing how we think about things and how we challenge them, and giving ourselves that permission to say, this is important and I am important and this is what I need, right?
Yes.
Whether or not all the way up at the top agrees, I don't care. This
Yeah.
is what I need right now.
Exactly. Exactly. I have been following this, I don't know what I should call them, content creator, the NAP ministry.
Amazing.
Yeah. right? They are about to
Amazing.
publish a book, and I am like, yes, this is so validating. Let's rest, let's take a
Mm-hmm.
nap, let's take a break. That is revolutionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was also sharing this with people in a webinar recently. I mean, should I even start? No, I will start. Black bodies need to rest. They have been enslaved, and black bodies today still carry, some of them carry the intergenerational trauma of that.
Mm-hmm.
Brown bodies, we have been told that we are hard workers, or we're the model minorities, and
Mm-hmm.
we work 2 3 jobs to send money back home, some of us. And even white bodies, pull yourself by the bootstraps, and all those stories that they have heard. So I do believe that rest and breaks and listening to your body is really so revolutionary, and so against this cultural norm, this capitalism, and all this white supremacy that unfortunately we have around us today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that rest piece, right? It's not just taking that time off or not just laying down, but like that internal conversation that's happening,
Yes.
full permission to rest,
Completely.
right? Because,
Yes.
and I have this conversation so much where people are like, yeah, I took the time off, but I still got my phone, my email, my work
Mhm.
email on my phone. And
Mhm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, turn that off. Oh, but my supervisor keeps it on. And I'm like, I don't care what they do. Connect them. They need to be connected with a therapist or somebody about boundaries, but that's not full rest. And you
Yeah.
deserve full rest, whether
Yeah.
it be for the weekend or, after work hours, right? There's so many messages that we get that say, keep going,
Yes.
chug
Yes.
along.
Exactly. We get rewarded for, to keep going, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know why this reminds me of productivity when I worked for agencies, right? Your numbers, who's at the top of that list? Yay, you are so great. You work so
Mm-hmm.
much and you work so hard. I mean, if that's your actual choice, good for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? If that's your actual choice. But sometimes it is not an actual choice, right? And if that's not the choice, then I do think it's so important to rest for sure. And what you're saying, right? The rest, that's actual rest. So not the self care that mainstream sells us, right? Like if you want to take a bubble bath, go take your bubble bath, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just not being online, disconnecting for an hour, just being with yourself, whatever it means, whatever fills your cup, nurtures your soul, whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that thing that takes you away from everything and really recharges your batteries, I think we should be doing more of that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, really thinking about where I talk to people about kind of like our different categories. How are you resting and recharging spiritually? How are you
Yes.
resting and recharging physically, emotionally, mentally, right? And we go through the whole
Yes.
thing. And I say,
Yes.
each one needs something different, right?
Completely.
And how do you address each
Yes.
one and not just
Mhm.
say, oh, I've got my nail appointment. Okay, that's one category. What
Uh-huh.
else do we
Uh-huh.
got?
Yeah. Yes. 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 That's so funny. I love that because it's a different theme but the same dynamic. I do it by identities, right? Like, what are
Mm,
your identities? Like, and I'll choose myself so that I am not like using identities that I don't have experience with, right? If you are an immigrant, like how is that part of you resting? How is that part of
mm,
you taking care of themselves? If you are a queer individual, what do you need to really fill your cup, right? As a brown person, what do you need? As a woman, as all the parts of you, all the
oh,
identities
I
that you
like
have, what
that.
do they need to feel rested, right? Like they had like an actual break.
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I like that so much. Oh, yes. I'll be incorporating that.
Please do.
Because it gives us, another way to think about things. And sometimes when we think about it from the perspective of, like you had said, if you're an immigrant,
Mhm.
what does it mean to feel rested
Exactly.
as an immigrant? What can you
Exactly.
do? The phrasing of it being different unlocks just a whole other slew of things,
Mm-hmm.
options, opportunities, and such.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Of course, of course. Like, as an immigrant, at some point I needed to be away from the news. I
Mm,
just could not watch the news, right?
mm-hmm,
With the Roe v. Wade, at some point, as a woman, I needed to be, yes, I want to know, but just enough so that it doesn't overwhelm me, so that this doesn't become vicarious trauma, and so that I still have the energy to take care for myself, to take care for my people, for my
mm-hmm.
community, and the energy to complain and to do something about it, right? So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that rest is so powerful for so many things.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the rest piece as you were saying to complain, right? So how
Yes.
do we take enough information, whatever your tolerance is, and that
Yes.
ties us back to our self-awareness. How do I know when I've watched too much or,
Exactly.
absorbed too much? That's individualized. But then enough to know, okay, what can I do? How can I advocate? What conversations can I have? How can I
Yes.
support my clients and so on?
Hmm.
That we need that balance.
Yes.
Um, and it brings me back to what you were saying earlier too about working in like an agency setting and having to hit productivity numbers and being overloaded with clients and so on, and how that directly connects to rest and burnout and longevity in the fields. And I
Yes.
say to people, I'm like, listen, I want to set you up in a way that you are in this field and doing this work for as long as you want to.
Hmm. Hmm.
That could
Hmm.
be 20 years, it could just be 5 years, it doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
Hmm.
But when you
Hmm.
make your exit, it's not because I can't do this anymore,
Completely.
right?
Yes, 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 yes. It's because you are living satisfied with the job that you did, and you are, for the most part, happy with the work that you did and the people that you
Mm-hmm.
helped. Completely, completely. Yes, I,
Exactly.
I I wish there was more of that. Um, and again, I think I could talk for hours and hours about the system, right? Because sometimes I think it is so easy to use this example. It is so easy to complain about the bosses, and yes, sometimes bosses are to be held accountable, and yes,
Mm-hmm.
they are at fault sometimes, but sometimes it's the fact that there's not enough money coming to a program, or not enough resources, or that boss doesn't have a supervisor supporting them as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it can be so complex sometimes, the challenge of
Absolutely.
providing a good service and finding that balance with resting and taking care of myself as
Mm.
well. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about, I've heard your journey into this work,
Hmm.
and some of the conversations that you have with clinicians and people that you're helping think about how do I decolonize the work that I'm doing.
Hmm.
And we also talked about how it's so individualized, right? Because the way I decolonize is different than the
Hmm.
next person and you and so on. So
Hmm.
how do you support people in figuring out and finding out what it looks like for them as an
Hmm.
individual in their practice?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a great question. So I started doing that with my clients, and I realized that that was not enough, right? It's like
Mm,
in 1 hour I can help one person, and that is great, but can I do enough? Because I keep on hearing the same story again and again and again. It feels like it didn't matter what the marginalized identity it was, but at some point it was like, I am not being served because of this, or this person, this provider is not understanding me because of this, or I don't feel safe, or I have been microaggressed so many times that I don't want to try again,
mm,
right?
right.
And at least here in Oregon, I think that got more exposed to that because my perception of Oregon is that there are not that many clinicians of color. And when I lived in California, because I am Latina, I was working mainly with the Latinx community.
Mm-hmm,
But here in Oregon, I got requests or inquiries to work with POCs in general. And I remember telling them, just so you know, I can help you with these things, but this is how much I know about your culture. And the
Yeah.
usual answer was, at least you are a POC, or at
Mm-hmm.
least you are queer, or at least is this or that, right? Like
Yes.
they were, people were wanting a way to connect or to identify with their provider, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was noticing that I was getting close to burnout
Mm,
because of this feeling of I want to help people. And I thought, well, what if I can help the providers as well? And that's the reason why I started to provide supervision. And then it felt like it was not enough. And also gauging my level of energy as well. And in the last year, I have managed to rest enough to have the energy to develop a program that is only for clinicians and healers, to help them figure out how they can decolonize their practices.
mm,
So what I offer them is an 8-week program, and we work through, identifying their identities. And even though they know what their identities are, to me, the extra piece is, what is your relationship to those identities? How are
mm,
you feeling about the fact that you are XYZ, or that you identify as ABC? Are
right.
you okay with that? Are you not? Are you feeling pride? Are you feeling shame?
Mm,
You know, and is that okay? What are your biases because of your identities, right? If you are this person, what is the identity gap between you and your client?
mm-hmm.
If these are your identities, how are you marketing your practice? And who are the people who feel drawn to your practice, right? Maybe that's not all of the community, and maybe you could be helping more individuals, and maybe you want to, but some unconscious biases are not letting you. So let's discover those, let's work through those, and let's not stop there. Let's figure out in what other areas you can make changes. Can you make changes in your treatment plan, right? In the interventions that you offered, as we were talking before, right?
Right.
For some clients, solution focus, CBT, things like that, just do not work. Some clients need to talk and
Mm-hmm.
talk because they haven't done that, or that's how they process. Some
Right.
clients don't have language for emotions, they feel with their bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so to me, the idea was, let's figure out who you are, what are your biases, let's figure out what is the treatment that you're offering, how can you decolonize that treatment, how can you decolonize also even your note taking, your relationship with insurance companies if you're working with insurance, right? If you are a supervisor, what's the supervision that you provide? Or if you're a professor, what is your relationship with your students? Because I
Mm-hmm.
have heard some horror stories as well, unfortunately.
Yes. Same
Um,
here.
and I
Mm-hmm.
can remember my own horror stories, going to, even though it was California, and there were more people of color in grad school, but still, it was just it was me and one more person of color in a cohort of maybe 15 individuals. So you
Mm,
can feel isolated.
yes.
Um, so anyways, and towards the end, what I tell them is, let's not stop here, let's decolonize, let's think about the person who's providing the treatment, right?
Mm,
Why should we stop at decolonizing your professional life when we can also decolonize? You can work on decolonizing your personal life. After all, you are the one person. It's not like you can separate one from the
right.
other, right?
My decolonized self is going to go to work.
Right, and I will leave my colonized self here at home, resting. The irony, right?
Oh,
So yeah, so that's what what I work with clinicians in
yeah.
my
Mm,
program, and they get to have this blueprint, um, a roadmap from beginning to end. They start to work on it so that when they leave the program or graduate from the program, they do have like actionable steps that make sense to their practice, right?
yes.
Because the other thing is, like, it would be so colonized of me to tell them how to decolonize, you
Right.
stop using insurance and you do this and you see this. No.
Right.
um so to me, it's so important to go through that process of, reflection, and really looking inside yourself and figuring
Mm,
out what makes sense to me and what makes sense for my practice. because I want clinicians to enjoy this journey, right?
Right.
I don't want it to feel like a burden or an obligation. I want them to enjoy it and to be aware of everything that's happening within them. Um, and
Mm,
at the end, how can you decolonize other parts of yourself? Imposter syndrome, those are colonized thoughts that are telling us that we should be doing better. It doesn't matter what's the identity there, but it's practically telling you that you are not good enough. And where is that
mhm.
coming from?
Right.
So that is in a nutshell the program that I am offering and the way that I am helping other. And of course, my hope is that, okay, if you have decolonized your practice or you are working on it, that is going to be reflected in the treatment that you're offering to your clients or to
Mhm.
your students or to your supervisees, whoever you're working with. Or if you're a
Mhm.
manager, in the way that you relate to your employees.
Right.
That's my hope with this program.
Yeah. Huge
Yeah,
ripple effects out
I
that
hope
that can
so.
have, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
that's my
so
hope.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really do love how individualized it is, right? Like we can all have this same set of questions, but the way we're each responding and connecting with each question is going to be different.
Completely.
And I love that you called it a roadmap, right? Because this is my journey through this
Yes,
process, and even
yes.
afterwards, how I continue to
Hmm.
incorporate it and support the ripple effects making
Exactly,
its way out. It's unique to myself. I love that so
exactly.
much. That's
Thank
dope.
you.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the individualized piece, because this is where I also want to honor people that come from more individualistic cultures. Like, there's nothing wrong with coming from one or another culture. Like, some things are meant to happen just within the individual, and
Hmm.
that's fine. And I want to honor that. And we are doing in a community, we are doing this in a community, right? So it's a group program. It's a very small group, but still, I want clinicians to also have that experience of, I am witnessing others and others are witnessing me in my process. And
Yes.
I hold people accountable, and someone is holding me accountable as well,
Hmm.
right? So that they are not doing this in isolation, right? I
Right.
don't think that decolonization or liberation can happen in isolation. It has to happen collectively, even if that group is a group of one other person. But
Hmm.
I need a witness to my
Right.
process. Validation and all of those things that we learn in grad school, right?
And
Yes.
I wholeheartedly agree, because that's exactly what we do within Gather and Heal and our Healing Connections membership, right?
Mhm,
So there's, weekly emails and journal prompts and so on for you to reflect on and or listen to.
mhm,
And we have what I call the community chop up, where we come together once a month and
mhm,
we talk about whatever the theme is for that month.
mhm,
And it provides you space and opportunity to turn inward and
mhm.
be wherever you are in your process,
Mhm.
and also then to be able to connect with others and
For
say,
sure.
hey, this is where I'm at, how you doing, where are you at, how can I help you, how can you help me, right? Like this
Yes.
very much collective healing journey.
For sure. For sure. I think, yeah, that sounds amazing, because I think it has to be a balance of, I have my own personal experience, but this
Hmm.
personal experience, it's also going to happen within a community, right? And my personal experience, I personally think it shouldn't stay within me. Some parts of it are meant to be shared with others,
Yay.
right? So that they become true,
Hmm.
in a way, right? Like, this energy should not stay within me. Can I share this energy with others as well? Because maybe I will inspire others as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's how we
Exactly.
heal.
Hmm.
I like that idea of healing, right? It's not just healing in the very physical sense. It's healing all of my parts, and in so many ways as well.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
think about it too as how, yes, we can inherit intergenerational trauma from years before and
Yeah.
generations before. And we also can receive these beautiful heirlooms and our strength
Yes.
and
Yes.
beauty behind us.
Hmm.
And as we are doing our work right now in our current bodies, we are healing our future generations too,
For sure. I
right? So when
completely
I'm
believe
like,
that.
you join this and you're doing this, or you're, engaging in individual therapy,
Yeah.
shout out to you. And your future generations are going to be saying thank you.
Yes, yes, you are healing the future, your future generations and the
Hmm.
future generations, because of the ripple effect that we were talking about before, right? Even if it's, and of course, it's not just the literal sense of the generations, right? Even if it's not my biological child,
Yes.
whoever I am in community with, I am going to offer a better version of myself, a more
Hmm.
wholesome, a more healed version of myself, right? And again, the hope of that ripple effect of, if I am offering this, I am hoping that that positive contagious energy,
Hmm.
you know, goes to you, and that you can offer that to others as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because I think I was recording, I call them V notes for
Mhm.
Vanessa Suhe, and they're just like super short um, inspirations, or, pieces of information for people to reflect on. But in one of those V notes, I was like, even if, like I said, it's not your biological child
Yes,
and so on and so forth, that kid walking up the street sees how you are carrying yourself.
completely.
That niece or nephew that you're interacting with for a couple hours is
Yes.
watching you and
Yes.
absorbing your energy, right? So
Hmm.
it is not just your literal um, family line,
Yeah.
it's
No,
anyone that you quote unquote touch and that is
exactly.
around. It's so
Exactly.
powerful.
Yes, 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 yes. Definitely,
Mm.
definitely. Yeah.
Silvana, I could go on for hours with you in this
Me too.
conversation. I'm like, this is so good. Um, I love that. I love the work that you are doing. And
Thank you.
I know that you left a link for people to um, have a resource from you. We
Mhm.
really appreciate that. So I'm going to put that in the show
Of
notes
course.
so other
Cool.
clinicians and healers can check it out and check out your program,
Great.
because it sounds amazing.
Thank
Mm,
you. Thank
love
you.
it so
It
much.
feels like my professional baby. I have put a lot of effort and energy, and I am so proud of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I am very excited about my program, and I am very excited about the people who are going to be in it as well.
And so I know we talked about a whole lot, but I still always like to ask this last kind of catch-all question.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't ask you that you think might be
Hmm.
helpful for people, or maybe it's something you find yourself saying a lot to
Mhm.
others?
Mhm. Mhm. Um, for some reason, I always go back to the idea of patience, compassion, and curiosity.
Mm,
I think that the person who consolidated that for me was Lama Rod Owens. When I read his book, Love and Anger, I was like, oh my God, this is speaking to my soul. So
mm,
it was him and some other people. Um, but, this idea of having curiosity, patience, and compassion with yourself, right? Compassion doesn't mean that I am going to tolerate what others are doing. Compassion means that I am going to feel compassion for myself, and I am going to set a boundary, and I am not going to allow others to microaggress me or to, re
mm.
traumatize me or to whatever. And that is compassion,
Yes.
right? And, um, because I care so much about you, I am going to tell you when you're hurting me,
Mm,
right? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that I always go back to that as a way of reminding me, as a way of disagreeing with my imposter
mm,
syndrome, right?
mhm.
Every time that she wants to come up, I remind her, let's just have some patience, curiosity, and compassion. And I think that we need a lot of that. It's so easy, I think, nowadays to feel like we are not doing enough, or
Mm,
like the world is upside down, or like there's no hope. So I just remind myself of those things.
yes. I
Yeah.
love that so much. And I'm glad that you felt called to share that, because Well, the first thing is I have all of those 3 words on my whiteboard right next to me.
Cool.
And our theme for this month is actually compassion. So you hit it spot on. There we are.
Nice. It's the energies. They are syncing our energies.
I love it. I love it so much. But thank you so much for coming through and having this conversation with me
For
and
sure.
doing the work that you do and making it accessible, right? By having these conversations, by
Yeah.
having webinars and the
Yes.
courses. I love it all.
Yes.
And so for anyone who is listening to this, please don't be greedy. Share with the homies. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. And, you know, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll have Silvana's contact information in the show notes, and y'all know you can always reach us there too. So until the next time, aka next Friday at 3 o'clock when the next episode drops, I hope you have nothing short of a beautiful fucking day, y'all. Peace.